Good morning and welcome to Morning Movie News. Now, obviously, in the wake of Frozen, everyone is very curious as to what Disney Animation is going to do next, and it looks like they're taking a giant left turn. Not only are they not making another Disney princess movie, which has been their bread and butter since Disney Animation literally began with Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, but they're doing something that Disney has never done before. And that's not only their first Marvel-inspired property with Big Hero 6, but their first anime-inspired property, which is a very bold yet risky move. And I say that because Eastern and Western animation has never really mixed. I mean, there's a small group of us that are kind of like the Venn diagram comes together, and that's like comic book fans largely, which I am and many of you are. But when you're talking big numbers, big mainstream numbers, it just really hasn't existed. And that's what Big Hero 6 has to hit. That's what it has to appeal to, the chunk of mainstream American moviegoers, if it's going to come anywhere close to Frozen's box office numbers. And that's a tough act to follow for any movie, and especially so for one that doesn't really have a target demographic at this point. It's creating one. Now, of course, Big Hero 6 could do quite well in Asia, which of course loves anime, and animation of all kinds does very well in their box office, and they're able to put up some big numbers. And also for films that are anime inspired, such as Pacific Rim did very well in China, and Japan can put up some very big numbers for animation in particular. Miyazaki's films make a lot of money there. So Big Hero 6, if it connects with that audience, has some money kind of guaranteed in the bank. But yet, the key word is connect, because again, Big Hero 6 is combining these mediums, Western and Eastern animation, and could end up not pleasing anyone. So, as I said, huge risk. And it's been very discomforting that they haven't really shown any concept art for it. It's a little like Frozen. That turned out great, thankfully, but they really played it close to the vest with Frozen right up until about a month before the film opened. We weren't really seeing anything. I mean, we discovered that's because they were massively reworking the story, changing Elsa from a villain to a hero, etc. And there's a patchwork quality to the film because of that, in my opinion. I know a lot of you don't agree with me on that, but I think if you really look closely, you can see it. But at the end of the day, it worked out. So I wonder what's going on with Big Hero 6. Are they doing those kind of last-minute tweaking? Because in the past, Disney Animation has given previews long in advance. That's a big thing. They've always hooked you with the next film. And you would think that right after Frozen, they'd be like, well, if you liked Frozen, you're going to love Hiro Hamada and Baymax as Robot. But we have seen none of that. No effort to transition that audience over to Big Hero 6. However, the reason I'm talking about all of this today is because yesterday a photo leaked of what Hiro and Baymax are going to look like. One picture of them together in their suits, their robot suits. Well, Baymax is a robot, but Hiro Hamada is kind of like a Tony Stark Jr., which in and of itself is an interesting question of how they're going to distinguish the two characters. But anyway, they're both in their suits, and that picture is leaked. And also a photo of you can see Hiro kind of from behind. I believe that's Hiro on one of those cool San Francisco trolleys. Now, right away, I'm surprised at the direction they're going with this, because you can see that there's kind of like a cosplay. To look to Hiro's, robot suit. He almost looks a little bit like a bunny, like a bunny rabbit. And that, to me, as soon as I saw it, I was like, hey, that's Adventure Time. And Adventure Time obviously is extremely popular. But at the same time, is it so popular that if you come anywhere close to it, are you just going to be ripping it off? Is Hiro's suit not going to be original enough if he's just a metallic fin from Adventure Time? So, and because they have that kind of similar dynamic of going on adventures, and instead of a giant robot bodyguard, he has this really interesting, weird dog. So I think that I'm not sure if they took that from Adventure Time, but at the same time, as I said, it seems very similar. Now, of course, in Asian countries, cosplay is very big. Also, dressing up like animals is very big. You might have seen it's kind of come over here a little bit, where they have like these suits that they're like giant pajama onesies, and they have like a little hood, and you're like a cute little animal. It's adorable. And I guess to some degree, this can play in on My Little Pony fandom and bronies. But as I said, this seems very tangential. It doesn't seem like its own commodity, which concerns me a little bit. The other thing is that I have to say, I think that Hiro, I don't know, I really, as I said many times, he better be Asian. And he looks, I'm not sure, but when I see from these photos, I'm kind of getting the idea he might be mixed race, kind of like how San Francisco is a mix between San Francisco and Tokyo. This film is a mix between Eastern and Western animation, and maybe Hiro will be a mix of, some kind of, Caucasian or maybe Latino, some kind of, Western demographic, and the East. And I think that would be interesting, particularly, not like because we haven't seen that before, but we were talking about, race in films the other day with Star Wars. Some of you, at least one, brought up, well, I don't see why there are more depiction of mixed race characters, especially because so many children these days are mixed race. So if that would be another interesting angle they could introduce here. But I kind of like what I'm seeing, but again, as I said, it's really on the line. It's risky. I see some good things here that I like. I'm just checking my notes. But to me, again, a little bit too much of an homage to several other aspects. Tony Stark, Adventure Time, and maybe not enough of its own reality. I really want to see a trailer, and I hope that they don't wait too long to give us something to take in. And there are going to be obviously a whole team of characters here, but I guess that Hiro and Baymax are going to be the heart of the story. So we'll see what happens. So that's the Big Hero 6 news. I'm curious to what you guys think of this picture. Some of you have been asking me to show photos, and of course for something like this, I put it in today. I think Carla, for instance, was the most recent person on my page. So as I said, I'm going to try and include pictures when it's very specific. So, but I'm just curious, what do you guys think of this? And for Frozen fans, is this something you like? Eastern animation fans, do you like this? Western animation fans, is this right in the middle? Is this the sweet spot, or is just nobody going to be happy? All right, so that's the first story of the day. The second, you might have seen this headline, it was all over the internet yesterday, and that's that Marc Webb has confirmed that he's not going to make any more Spider-Mans after the first 3. Now, I have mixed feelings about this. And also, you might recall, Andrew Garfield kind of said the same thing. So first, let's talk about that kind of a decision. I guess there's two things I want to talk about. The decision for Webb, and also what it would mean for the potential Spider-Man franchise, the universe. Because as we all know, Sony is building a Spider-Man universe, complete with villains getting their own films, a Venom anti-hero film, I believe, etc. So if Garfield and Webb leave, are they going to reboot? How are they going to continue this story? And I have some ideas on that. But first, let me start by talking about Webb's decision. Now, I can see where he's coming from. He basically just made 500 Days of Summer and jumped right into these Spider-Man movies, and he's been quite successful so far. And the second one looks quite good. It's got the big, awesome release date of the first movie of the summer. It's got a lot going for it. So I can see why he would want to leave the franchise on a high note and go make other movies. But yet at the same time, I would say, hey, Marc Webb, Bryan Singer did the same thing, basically jumped out of The Usual Suspects and I believe Apt Pupil right into the X-Men movies, and then was like, I want to go make other movies. And nobody wanted to see his other movies. So now he's back firmly entrenched in the X-Men universe for Fox, and he's not only making Days of Future Past, I believe he produced First Class, and then he's also really getting ready to ramp up X-Men Apocalypse. And there was talk actually yesterday, James Mangold tweeted that they're working on Wolverine 2, which will come out after X-Men Apocalypse. So, and Bryan Singer, I'm sure, is involved in that as well. So, Singer left, and he's found that, things were pretty good where he was. It's not so bad to have a franchise to your name. Now, Sony, this is also a situation kind of where they had a really strong creative voice over at Warner Brothers, Christopher Nolan, who shepherded the Batman trilogy, and then he wanted to leave. And in the same regard, just like Nolan wanted to stay on as a consultant, Webb is saying, oh, I will stay on as a consultant as well. But we all know Nolan famously left after Man of Steel, and the rumor is because he didn't agree with the choices that were being made going forward and didn't want his name on it. Now, he might not necessarily think they're a bad idea, just not his idea, and he feels uncomfortable kind of lending, I think, his entire image to a venture where he has very little say. I mean, obviously, when you're a consultant, you say what you think they should do, and then they do what they want to do anyway, whether or not that's what you suggested. So I think that Webb, that's a nice thing for him to say, but I don't think it's going to work out in the long run. Because, at the same time, if you're the new director, do you really want Webb looking over your shoulder being like, that's not what I would do? And I'd be like, well, Webb, you should have stayed on if you wanted to do what you wanted to do. So I think basically if Webb's going to leave after 3, he's leaving after 3. So as I said, Webb, I understand your desire to make other movies, but there must be some downtime between these films. But really not. I mean, Sony has grabbed a lot of dates. Sony's already set Spider-Man 4 for 2018. So maybe there are no breaks for him. I mean, Nolan was able to take a break and make Inception part of the deal that Warner Brothers made with him so that he would come back for a third Batman film. Because he was like, I kind of made a perfect one with The Dark Knight. I'd like to leave. And they're like, oh, please don't. It made so much money. We'll give you a lot of money for Inception. Which that's not a bad deal for Warner Brothers. Inception worked out quite well for them. But anyway, I can see why Webb wants to leave. I hope that it turns out to be a good decision and we don't see him coming back for Spider-Man 5. Also, I hope they can get a good replacement for him. I mean, obviously, I think Zack Snyder, a lot of us have been unhappy with him stepping in for Nolan. I think none of us feel it's comparable, but, and because Webb's done such a great job with the Spider-Man universe. So anyway, let's talk about how the Spider-Man universe could continue without Webb, and more importantly, Andrew Garfield. Will they recast the role of Peter Parker? I think there are more interesting ways to go. We've always been discussing here for quite some time the possibility of going with Miles Morales, which I still think is a very good idea. But also, I'm going to talk about the this more in the viewer question today. There's actually 2 questions about the same topic, but I'm going to touch on it lightly here, and that's the idea of having a female lead. And I would actually consider maybe they should go with Jessica Drew. Now, Jessica Drew is Spider-Man in the 616. That's the main Marvel universe and the main storyline in their comics. But if you go over into the Ultimate Universe, which the movie seems to be drawing from to some degree, Jessica Drew is a clone of Peter Parker. That's how they kind of handled the whole Clone Wars storyline. They had a clone, obviously a big storyline in the original 616 Spider-Man stories, but they changed it so it was a female clone. And I thought that was very interesting. I thought there are a lot of interesting questions right off the bat. A female or, the opposite gender version of you, what that person would be like. And I thought the Jessica Drew character has been very well realized by Brian Michael Bendis. Brian Michael Bendis is a very good writer, especially with the Ultimate Spider-Man title. I think he writes very good male and female characters, and characters of all ages are very good. They're all very clever and snarky, but I think it works. So I would like to see that version of Jessica Drew in the movies, and that's another way they could go with it. They could cast an actress who looks kind of like Andrew Garfield. Shailene Woodley, I think, who was supposed to play Mary Jane, looks kind of like him. But I don't know. I think we'll see how Divergent does. But I think there's an actress out there who could do a good job as Spider-Woman, and it would carry on the story in an interesting way. So I think thanks to the Ultimate Universe, you could go Miles Morales, you could go Jessica Drew. There are some very interesting choices there. So that's what I would like to see happen. I would like to not see a replacement for Peter Parker. I'd like to not see another frickin' reboot. I think we're so tired of these origin stories. They can't reboot this for a 3rd time, or can they? I would rather see a new Spider-Man, someone else under the mask, be it Jessica or Miles. So who would you vote for, Jessica or Miles? Write your thoughts down below. And are you going to be sad to see Marc Webb go? Do you think it's time? Do you understand? If you were his agent, what would you advise him? So that's the second story. The third story, speaking of Shailene Woodley and Divergent, I'm curious to how you guys feel about this movie. Now, obviously, the industry trades broke the news that this movie is tracking huge. It's set to open with near $70 million. And a number of people in the industry and here on YouTube in the comment sections, and when I've mentioned it, especially in Movie Math yesterday, have been like, no freaking way that movie is going to do $70 million. It looks awful. And I kind of have to agree with you. It looks pretty bad from the trailer. I have a lot of problems with it, and the reviews have been very bad. Last I checked, it was rocking a 14% on Rotten Tomatoes, but it wouldn't be the first time that the general public didn't agree with Rotten Tomatoes. I mean, the first Hunger Games got an 84%, and even Catching Fire, which I thought was a really spectacular film, and is the most successful film domestically of 2013, that only got an 89% on Rotten Tomatoes. So, you don't necessarily, but 14 is really low. But I mean, not a lot of reviews are in yet. So we'll see. I mean, but I have to say at the same time, I'm seeing it Thursday night, my review will come out Friday morning. They sold a lot of advance tickets for this thing already. I mean, Fandango has been selling a lot of Divergent tickets. So, and I have my theories to that, which you'll find out with my review, the opening, why I think Divergent is actually, why it is tracking well, and what everybody is missing. But I'm curious, do any of you have Divergent tickets? Do any of you believe that this story is true? Do any of you believe that Divergent will be a hit? Or are you all all very, suspicious of this, and you don't think it's going to actually come true, and this is just wishful thinking, or maybe a story that Lionsgate and someone have floated to be like, you better buy your tickets, it's going to be huge, you're going to miss it, and therefore kind of create that huge event just by that kind of rumor. So write your thoughts down below that as well. And also, this is such a big deal, you should be interested to know that Lionsgate stocks are falling because of the bad reviews for Divergent, and also the fact that Tyler Perry's film for them, The Single Moms Club, did so poorly at the box office. However, if you're into buying stocks, maybe you want to buy some stock while it's down before Divergent opens huge on the weekend, because I think it's going to still open big. It may not be 70, but the advanced ticket sales that I'm seeing for this are pretty strong. I'm surprised. I wouldn't think anybody would be going to see this, because I have to agree with many of you, it just looks so bad. All right, so those are the 3 stories of the day. The viewer question, back to female characters and diversity and the lead, because we've been talking about this a lot lately, both with John Boyega as a potential lead for Star Wars, and also whether or not Fox is trying to keep Michael B. Jordan for Johnny Storm. By the way, the story of the Fantastic Four potential shakeup, was broken by Bleeding Cool. While Fox denied it, Bleeding Cool is standing by their story and saying that's just Fox covering up for the fact that behind Josh Trank's back, they elaborated, Fox is approaching other directors. And directors are saying no, so that's why Josh Trank still has the job and is still on set for an April 21st shoot date, I believe they said. It would be funny if it was April 1st. They'd be like, surprise, Josh Trank, you're not making Fantastic Four. Ha ha ha. Studio humor. But so, I guess, I don't know why everyone's saying no to a Fantastic Four movie. I don't know, the first 2 were pretty awful. All right, so anyway, the question comes from Davy J, that's the first one, says, I'm all for adding diversity to film, but why is it whenever people want to add diversity, the default go-to is a black male? Why not a black female, an Asian, a gay character? I agree with this, by the way, and so I'm going to elaborate. But then also, Chantal Bennett asked a similar question saying, hi Grace, love the show, watch it every day. Thank you, Chantal. Why is there so much discussion about a black actor in a lead role and not about a woman in a lead role? Black men make more money and have more screen time than white women, black women, and Latin women. When will women have a fair enough chance for a lead as their male, both white and black counterparts? She says, for instance, I wanted a female kick-ass role in Star Wars. There was that Grace Moretz rumor for a while. Thanks, all the way from Puerto Rico. Hi, Chantal. I'm sure it is much warmer in Puerto Rico. It is very cold in New York still. All right, so as to the question here, the reason you don't see more diversity is because so far the demographics just aren't delivering for those groups. I think that we might see a change with the increased box office in China and the Asian market in general. I think that's going to lead to some more Asian lead roles. We'll see what happens coming up with, for instance, Big Hero 6, which I just mentioned. I know that's animated, but if it succeeds, perhaps that'll influence live action. And also there are some roles in Transformers 4. There's a poster of Li Bingbing for, obviously the Asian market, but still it's a movie poster. She's the lead. She's the selling point for the movie. So we might see more of that. And so I think that could influence in terms of that. With a gay character, as Davy J said, there was some talk that Roland Emmerich for Independence Day the sequel, he wanted to make another Independence Day, even though that's maybe on hold because Will Smith turned it down. But he wanted to include, as I reported earlier, a gay character who just happened to be gay. He was a hero. He was part of the main team of characters, but he wasn't there as comic relief. He was just was a plain hero like everybody else, and just happened to have a same-sex partner. So I thought that was a great idea, and I hope that still happens or someone else does that, because I think these are important things. I think that you have to remember. Movies influence how people feel in the general public, because it just think about like the Will and Grace factor, for instance. Lots of times TV shows, I think, have really opened up doors and changed people's thinking. So I think that's why it's important to see these things. So that's what's going on. But I wanted to speak specifically to women, because I do agree that for a while there was that rumor that the lead in Star Wars would be a woman. But I have to tell you, the reason that I haven't been really big promoting it, and why I think that it didn't work out, and why I'm nervous about it in any way in general, is because with female characters, it's very hard to get them right. I mean, I think that's changing, but I always think that Hollywood, for some reason, decides to make them focus on how sexy a female character is, an action hero. Like, she can kick butt and save the world while being super sexy and being better than all the guys. I mean, there's not a human quality to these characters. They're like, Barbie action heroes. And I think that I don't like that. I think that you're not having if we could have an every woman like we have every men, I think that it would be a better lead. Like, for instance, when I first heard they wanted to, look how I think Hit Girl was largely ruined a lot in the sequel. I think the great qualities that she had in the first film, when they had to make the character get older, they fell into a lot of those tropes that I have a lot of problems with, and I think a lot of people do. But for instance, when they said they wanted to have a female Star Wars lead, I was like, oh, great. Everyone's going to talk, it's going to be the focus in the movie about how sexy this Jedi is. And she's supposed to be a monk. The Jedi are like a religious order. You can't have a sexy monk. You can have an accidentally sexy monk, an unintentionally sexy monk. There's nothing wrong with sex appeal in movies for men or male or female characters, but it can't be like on the purpose of the character. The character can't know they're sexy, and I think that's a big problem. And it might not just be with the screenwriter, the writers and the directors, but actresses. I've talked a lot about how I feel like Emma Stone and Anne Hathaway both really hurt their careers by becoming obsessed with being hot. Emma Stone went blonde, never was really willing to go back. She's gone back to red for this upcoming Woody Allen movie she's making. But I think she's focusing more on being Andrew Garfield's girlfriend right now than making really great movies. And she was really on a hot streak. So that's been disappointing. And of course, I think Anne Hathaway did a wonderful job. She actually did a pretty good job as Catwoman. I was very happy with that. But I think that every time you see her in public, she's voguing. And I have a big problem with actresses who vogue. So I like that. So as I said, it's changing. I think Scarlett Johansson is an excellent Black Widow. I think Emily Blunt, I'm very excited for her turn in Edge of Tomorrow. Muriel Enos in Sabotage. I think we're seeing female action heroes who are just able to be action heroes. And I think that's why these characters don't really stick around that much. The ones that do last are the ones that are just regular characters, that put the action first. That's the purpose of their character, not to be a hot action hero. Sigourney Weaver, her Ripley, not worried about being hot. Sarah Connor, Linda Hamilton, not worried about being hot. And also to some degree, I think a good example is Milla Jovovich. She's been really successful because while I think she's traditionally like supermodel attractive, she doesn't let that color her performance. She just does a good job in the role. And I also think it speaks to Angelina Jolie that none of her characters have really become iconic. I mean, Angelina Jolie is famous herself, but none of the action heroes she's played, even Lara Croft, have never really succeeded or took root in the movie-going culture, because it's always just Angelina Jolie playing them, and the discussion always turns to how hot she looks holding that gun, instead of, isn't she just a great character? Isn't her character arc great? Like, where is that? Where are these characters' development? What's their motivation besides it's just a hot chick with a gun? So that's why I got very worried about it being in Star Wars, and until Hollywood can fix this, I mean, look at the female roles even in Star Trek Into Darkness. Until they can fix this and make the female characters just as normal and well-balanced and developed as the male characters, I think they're never going to be successful leads. So that's my answer to that. I'm curious to how you guys feel. Guys, would you watch, does it need to be just a hot female action hero? Is that all you care about? Or would you also be interested in these more developed characters? And female moviegoers, how do you agree with me? I mean, do you think that would be a problem with Star Wars? Would you not want to see that? Or would you just be happy just as long as there was a female lead? So thank you for your questions, Davey and Chantal. Thank you for everybody who tuned in today. You can write down below what you think of today's 3 top stories in the viewer question right now, and let me know what you'd like to see covered tomorrow and any questions you might have. Thanks for watching.